Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Salt AI video newsletter, where I try to keep us all up to date on what's going on in the world of AI, ComfyUI, and Salt. This week we've got some big news from OpenAI, including them launching an office in Japan, as well as batch pricing and updates to their Assistant API. We'll talk also about why a lot of AI companies are interested in Japan, and the reasons why include the laws that they've passed around training models. The EU has also passed their own laws in the totally opposite direction, so we'll see how that plays out and dive into what they did there. We'll go into AI and design, with Adobe making some big announcements on including some new features from Runway, OpenAI, and Pika, some competitors, directly into their products. And then there was a bunch of multimodal models released this week from Twitter, Hugging Face, Microsoft, and Shanghai AI Lab. Last but not least, we'll cover some really interesting stuff in generative AI, including some viral videos that happened this week and some new tools in ComfyUI that allow anything from person replacement, voice cloning, and some more control in your workflows. Let's get right into it. Starting at the top, OpenAI is introducing OpenAI Japan. It is their first office in Asia, and they're releasing a custom GPT-4 model that's optimized for the Japanese language. They're not the only ones pushing AI in Japan. Sakana AI raised $30 million early this year to develop nature-inspired AI in Japan as well. You might be curious as to why a lot of these companies are starting in Japan, and a big piece of it may be Japan's unique approach to generative AI copyright law. Japan has taken the approach to decide not to enforce copyright law on any material used to train generative AI models, regardless of whether it's used for nonprofit or commercial purposes. That means OpenAI, if they're training models in Japan, does not need to worry about copyright laws to the same degree that they do in the US, which is still being decided in some large ongoing court cases. This is a very different approach to the one the EU is taking, where they're starting to actually regulate the development and use of these systems, ranging from transparency requirements to obtaining a comprehensive marking or authorization from the EU itself, depending on how risky that AI system is, according to them. The EU, and especially France, are really starting to develop their AI capabilities, with companies like Hugging Face and Mistral pushing them forward. But it will be interesting to see how this EU Act that was passed just this week will impact the decision for those developers to continue building there, or if they'll start looking elsewhere. That wasn't OpenAI's only announcement this week. This week, OpenAI introduced their Batch API, which enabled users to upload a file of bulk requests. You'll get the results within 24 hours, not immediately, but as a result, you'll get a 50% off discount. This is huge as the cost of intelligence continues to trend downward. It's becoming more accessible, but also becoming more difficult for other startups and competitors to compete with OpenAI on price. They also introduced a series of updates to their Assistants API, where they're really leaning to retrieval augmented generation, allowing up to 10,000 files to be integrated into the knowledge base of each assistant. But how exactly they're doing it is still a black box, so we'll see how many people adopt their approach. If you've been following along with our updates every week, you know just how much interest agents and assistants are starting to get in the AI community. Another big news, Stanford just released their yearly Artificial Intelligence Index report, where they cover essential trends, estimate AI training costs, detailed analyses of responsible AI landscape, and made a new chapter dedicated to AI's impact on science and medicine. This report's about 500 pages, so I'll let you dive into it if you're interested on your own time, but they did release 13 charts that help show the state of AI. They call out a move towards open source, with more and more foundation models being released open source. But those closed source models still outperform their open source counterparts. You can see who's creating those foundation models in the chart below, with Google pushing out the most. But in general, the number of foundation models coming out is on a steep increase. The training cost of those models is all over the place, with some estimated to cost more than $100 million to train. Below, you can see the machine learning models by country, with the US in the lead, China behind, and France, as I mentioned, right there in third. And you can see just how good AI is becoming at each of these different performance benchmarks as compared to a human baseline. 2015 is when AI became better than humans at image classification or identifying an object in an image. But you can see drastic improvements recently in multitask language understanding as well as competition level math. A little bit later today, we'll also talk about how it's performing on medical tasks. Total investment may have peaked, but investment in generative AI continues to grow, and most of that is led by investment within the United States. You can see how businesses are actually starting to apply AI, with most using it in contact center automation and personalization, but also starting to use it in customer acquisition, enhancement of products, and creation of totally new AI-based products like Salt. Reflecting on people's opinions, people think that AI will likely impact their job, but may not replace it in the next 5 years. But you can see which countries say AI makes them the most nervous. Lastly, similar to what we talked about in terms of regulation, you can see that the number of regulations related to AI is starting to grow. One last chart that I would throw in here is the number of H100 GPU shipments from NVIDIA by customer, and we can clearly see that Meta and Microsoft are holding on to the most. This week also saw some big breakthroughs in AI for design, with Adobe announcing that they're going to integrate video generation within Adobe Premiere Pro. You can see in their demo here that you can go add an object and with a pen select what you want to replace, and we'll do it automatically. You can extend clips automatically as well, using AI to fill in the gaps. And they even integrated competitors like Pika and Runway so that it's not just Adobe tools you can use. Interesting to see their approach of, instead of fighting against these competitors, bringing them in internally. They're not the only ones. Coinbase announces they've been ramping up the usage of AI tools on their design team, where they're using text to get a Figma mockup and then click any button to turn a Figma design into front-end code. For those of you that don't know, last year, Figma actually announced their acquisition of the company Diagram with a blog post titled AI, the Next Chapter in Design, which shows you just how important they think AI will be in the future of design. Since they've continued working on Figma to code with AI, but also have integrated it in FigJam, allowing you to generate something from scratch, create charts from an idea, automatically identify themes, and get instant summaries. Shifting gears a little bit, this week there were many multimodal language model releases, which means large language models that can understand other modalities like images, audio, or video. Twitter announced Grok 1.5, showing off capabilities like taking a diagram and turning it into code, calculating calories, taking a drawing and turning it into a bedtime story, and more. They also showcased real-world understanding, notably examples related to driving, like how you can navigate in traffic. That relevance to another Elon Musk company, Tesla, did not go unnoticed. Dr. Jim Fan, the lead of NVIDIA's Embodied AI Lab, called out that it could be helpful to solve edge cases in self-driving, and Elon Musk replied saying that he believes there's two sources of infinite data. One, synthetic data, which many companies are leading into using these AI tools to generate data themselves, as well as real-world video, which doesn't have the problem of potential hallucinations. Speaking of synthetic data, Microsoft released their own multimodal model called Wizard LM2, the much anticipated follow-up to the model Wizard LM, that has improved performance on chat, multilingual, reasoning, and agents, with a family of extra large, large, and small models. And their belief is that as human-generated data becomes increasingly exhausted, data that's carefully created by AI will be the sole path towards more powerful AI. So they spent the past year building a fully AI-powered synthetic training system. I'm interested to see just how far synthetic data can go. It's clear language models can definitely help improve data. We're already starting to see research coming out showing just how successful synthetic data is, and how language models can transform it in different ways, like this paper from Berkeley that showed that you can effectively use a language model to take large context and concisely represent it in order to get better performance with 30 times less tokens or words in the context and resulting in an 8 times speed up. Now, it seemed Microsoft wasn't quite ready to release this model as they rolled it back and removed the download links, but because they released that model under a permissive license, there's nothing stopping the people who did download that to start using it on their own. A couple other groups released their multimodal models, including Hugging Face, who released theirs fully open source and with public datasets, as well as the Shanghai AI Lab, who released theirs open source as well. It's great to see more and more open source models, and it looks like incentives are going to continue pushing people to release them in that way, which in the end I think is really good for the consumer. A unique thing we saw this week is an interesting new project called Payman, which is actually a marketplace where AI agents can go to hire humans for tasks that they can't do themselves. They're trying to solve a few major problems like giving AI agents access to funds, making sure that the quality of task completion is high, and verifying work with humans. I'm a big fan of keeping humans in the loop. This isn't exactly what I pictured, but I'm interested to see how it pans out. Some other interesting research related to language models came out of Harvard this week, showing that with the right strategies, you can convince AI models that your product's awesome. It'll be interesting to see which companies lean in on this and what kind of downstream effects there are for consumers. Next, as I mentioned before, related to language models in health, some researchers from the Department of Public Health in Tel Aviv released results of their GPT versus resident physicians, where they benchmarked them on official medical boards. They saw that GPT-4 ranked higher than the majority of physicians in psychiatry, was similar to the median physicians in general surgery and internal medicine, and while it was lower in pediatrics and OBGYN, it remained higher than a considerable fraction of active doctors. To me, this sounds like a great step towards making medicine more accessible. Though risky, since these models are still prone to hallucinations. Shifting gears to generative AI, we're starting to see some apps taking new approaches like Naval's AirChat, which was released last week, which is a chat app, but the difference is that you have to use audio to record your messages, which are then transcribed with AI automatically. Now, it's not just apps. Some viral AI content was taking off this week. Notably, this music video that uses OpenAI to generate the script, Runway for videos, Suno for the song, and some other AI tools to create a pretty compelling product.
It's me now, two on the scene. Gonna rule the gold gang, made me a milli on the crypto. Gold gang, then it went silly with the sick flow.
Might not be my cup of tea, but it racked up over 3 million views in a week, generating a lot of discussion and controversy as well. The production quality is surprisingly high. This music video picks up where other iconic AI content left off, like Harry Potter Balenciaga, which was released last year.
You are Balenciaga, Harry.
And a parody of Lord of the Rings by Wes Anderson, which came out around the same time.
In the quaintest corner of Middle-earth, embark on an epic journey unlike any you've experienced before.
Another AI video that went viral was when creators on Twitter took this walkout video of Lil Yachty at a concert and used a tool called Viggle in order to replace him with other iconic characters like the Joker. This also racked up over 500,000 videos in a week, and somebody created a workflow in ComfyUI to actually create the exact same result. Speaking of ComfyUI, there was releases including ComfyUI Sobits, which allowed voice cloning and text-to-speech in Comfy, totally pushing the envelope of what's possible once again. In addition to creators pushing their research further and further, like Motion Thief, which takes a source video like this wolf and applies it to a new generation. As you can see here, it allows more controllability for the artist. That's all for this week. Thanks for following along, and let me know if you've got any questions in the comments below. See you soon.